A couple of months later, that's when the entire space really blew up. This is the beginning of 2021. We saw hip hop artists really jumping in and embracing this new technology. Even to this day, the social token party is just getting started. The balloons aren't even up. We're just super early. Web2 giants like Instagram and Facebook are now embracing the Web3 technology, essentially because their hand is being forced. And so when we think of Web3, we're seeing two trends happen. We're seeing Web2 giants embrace Web3. For example, Instagram, NFTs was the conversation of yesterday. Today, we're speaking about the metaverse. Tomorrow, it's about DAOs. And the day after, it's about social tokens. Social tokens will complement, not compete with NFTs. And we prefer to just focus on building one thing and doing it really well. And that's building the social token platform.
Hello and welcome back to Since 3000. I'm your host, Danielle Leslie. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Noel Borges. Noel is the founder of MintBlack, the social token platform that stands at the intersection of IRL, NFTs, DAOs, and the metaverse. And don't you worry, we're gonna get into all of that and deconstruct it for you. Noel was part of the team behind the first hip hop artist to launch their work as an NFT. He's an expert on Web3 and is the best person to guide us through what this transition into the future of the internet is all about. So we're gonna get into all of that and more. Please welcome Noel Borges to Since 3000. Welcome!
Awesome, thank you, Danielle.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to bring you today's episode, but before we do, I need to make sure you've heard about MemberUp. So community-driven products are the future, but Facebook groups are a thing of the past. And after 10 plus years in the online education space, I've taken all my learnings and I've built this incredible platform, MemberUp. It's a customizable, easy to use, all-in-one platform where you can build a premium course, community, or membership site without the tech headache. Gone are the days of having to duct tape together your content, your community, your payments, all on different platforms. I want you to do me a favor, do yourself a favor, and head over right now to memberup.com/Danielle. And you can get started for free today. I promise you, I can't wait for you to see this platform. It's beautiful. Okay, the design is amazing. Your community is going to feel at home here, and you are going to take pride in your online business. It is the place to start. Head over to memberup.com/Danielle. Now let's get into the episode. So excited to have you here. So it's wild because we met at NFT NYC about a year ago, and you were putting on an event. I was in the crowd, and I was there with Helen. And we were learning and going deeper into the NFT space. We had thoughts of starting a collection. And I was like in the cut, just like taking my notes, watching people on stage. And then you came over and you were talking to different people there and letting them know about your event. So first I want to start with like what that event was. I know what it was and it was extraordinary, but I want those listening to know like what that event was and what it encapsulated with what you've done in the space and how you've invited so many like myself into the space to understand more about it.
Absolutely. So the event was about Web3 X fashion. And so you were very fashionable and you seemed like someone who should be at the event just like you always are and are now. And so I invited you and your team, and Helen in particular, to join us for live NFT X fashion gallery, where we were envisioning and reimagining what would it look like for fashion, the fashion industry to be disrupted with NFTs, the metaverse, social tokens. So the event took place in Clockwork on Soho, Broadway, and we had over 1,000 folks who were in attendance. NFT 360 photo booth was present where folks, including yourself, would be able to take a picture on the 360 photo booth, and then later on realize they just created an NFT. And so we saw that as an opportunity for folks just learning about the space to get involved and by creating and then learning more about it after. And on the NFT 360 photo booth, we gave an opportunity for different creators of NFT projects to share about what they're up to and even drop live NFTs made available to folks who were in the audience.
I love that. And I remember like going to the event and I was like, oh my gosh, it's packed, it's dope. And there was an opportunity to purchase. I loved the fusion of fashion and NFTs and also social tokens. You presented it in a way that was like accessible to someone like me who was new to the space, because it was, okay, here's a t-shirt that you can buy that has Capricorn on it. And when you purchase this, you get a share, you get a certain amount of Capricorn. So if you could speak to what exactly that means, because Jim Jones came through, like we were at the event and like he comes through, he gets on the 360 photo booth stand and you introduce him. And I remember like recording and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? This is amazing. And so you introduce him and then he kind of shares about what he's doing in the space. But tell us about like, you were really like integrating fashion, social tokens, a huge personal brand like Jim Jones. Explain what that was.
What we made available it was an opportunity for folks to get their hands on social tokens. And so to your point, we wanted a way for everyday person to be able to possess and come into possession of social tokens without having to learn or do too much to get there, right? And so how do we make it as frictionless as possible? And we experimented with this concept called buy a t-shirt. And as a reward, you would receive X number of social tokens. In this case, it was Jim Jones' social token, Coppercoin. And so that was an easy way for folks to get in possession of Coppercoin, as well as we integrated certain t-shirts we had available were prints of NFTs that were simultaneously displayed as physical art around the gallery. So we were experimenting with two concepts. One is let's take NFTs and print them on the t-shirt. And then second, when folks come into possession of the t-shirt, they'll be able to earn social tokens as a reward that they can then later on use for different use cases, one of which might be to buy other merchandise within the boutique.
Wow. Okay. So we have a few things to unpack here because I know you got into cryptocurrency really early and then into NFTs really early, building a platform and then social tokens. So you're mentioning social tokens. We're going to like rewind for folks who are not familiar with that term. So how would you explain like what are social tokens and what are some of the benefits? And I guess Jim Jones is a great case study because I think you built a coin around him, around his brand. You gave his audience access to different benefits. So let's take Jim Jones as a case study because he is a hip hop legend and he's now known as one of the first like major artists in Web3. And you were the one who like started that conversation. You were the one who like got him, in that conversation, which is like beautiful. So how did that happen? And what has been the evolution of, him, intersection of Web3 and the work like you've done with him?
I entered the space in 2016. We tinkered or iterated on a project where we decided let's just tokenize the world. This very moonshot concept that everything and everyone will eventually be tokenized, whether as an NFT or a fungible token.
And when you say like anything can be tokenized, what does that mean?
Right. And so products can be tokenized as either as a one-on-one, a picture frame, and a piece of art. And so that would usually take place in the form of an NFT, a non-fungible token, a one-of-one. And in a moment, we can go deep on what an NFT is. That's one concept. The second is a fungible token, meaning it can be traded, used, let's say, as currency. And that's where we experimented with Jim Jones. And I use the word experiment intentionally because this entire Web3 concept is a great experiment. We're in the sandbox, we're tinkering, we're building away, and we're all contributing a note to this incredible symphony that is being created right before our eyes. One verse that Jim Jones, pun intended, contributed to the space is Coppercoin. And we launched that as his social token in the beginning of 2021. To rewind just a bit, in October of 2020, I knocked on Jim's door and said, Jim, let's create an NFT. He said, what's an NFT? So we broke it down and said, send me a picture of your chain. Did so, we sold it. And he's like, so I still have my chain and someone bought a picture of it. Why would they do so? And I said, well, it's digital memorabilia. So no different than if they would want a baseball card of, say, Babe Ruth. In this case, they have a one-of-one digital chain of Jim Jones, a hip hop legend. And that's the beginning of it. Later on, we can add these incredible utilities to it. But at its base, that was one example.
And then to pause you, so I think what makes it the one of one is that the chain was logged on the blockchain, a different kind of chain. So I think when people think about the rookie card example you used, it's verified. It's verified that this is the only rookie card of Babe Ruth of this form that exists in the world. And so same with Jim. I took this photo. I am the owner of it. I have verified it on the blockchain that I, Jim Jones, took a photo of my own chain. It's on the blockchain, it's logged as I have taken this photo, I have entered it onto this ecosystem to sell it. This person has purchased it, so I've transferred ownership to this person. So I think that's what makes it like non-fungible, is that it is logged on the blockchain, right?
Brilliant, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And so
Got it.
Jim takes the picture, he sells it, and now that's, as you mentioned, a one of one. And because Jim is the owner of it, there's value to it because he has a large brand that in this case he is capitalizing. Later on, we go about building his community, and not through NFTs as much as through social tokens. And so 3 months later, he goes on the Breakfast Club. He speaks about exactly what we just described, and speaks with Charlemagne and DJ Envy, and shares not only some use cases that they might consider for NFTs, which a year later they end up doing so, which is a full circle moment, but also his journey in Web3. And a couple of months later, that's when the entire space really blew up. This is the beginning of 2021. We saw hip hop artists really jumping in and embracing this new technology and disrupting the music industry. And so he speaks about NFTs and his social token, Coin, which if we thought he was early with NFTs, he's super early with social tokens, because even to this day, the social token party is just getting started. The balloons aren't even up. We're just super early.
I love that. And so out of curiosity, how much did the photo of his chain go for, his first NFT?
So at the time, if I'm not mistaken, it's around 2 ETH, which was somewhere around $500 per ETH at the time. So it was, let's call it 1,000. And at its peak, when ETH hits about 4,500, it was valued at, let's call it 9,000. And so wow. Jim, what I celebrate about him, and among many other creators, he held on to all of his cryptocurrency that he acquired over time. And so as Ethereum appreciates, the value that he acquired for purchasing the chain also increases.
I love that. So you're hitting on what I'm hearing is like cult of personality. So he has this brand, this built-in brand equity he's built over all these years. He has this audience that not only, when you think of a brand, it's like the values, everything that Jim represents. And so the person purchasing the chain, now owning this asset, is buying into this brand. They're a part of the party. And I think that something that's interesting that I noticed as I got more into the space is it is kind of like the new flex. And so it's like, one flex in one version of the world might have been like a Lambo. And it's like now the flex could be owning like Jim's first NFT, which is like a photo of his chain, and being able to be like, yo, like this legend took a photo of his chain, and I was the first to mint it. I was the first to purchase it. So how have you seen this becoming like the new status symbol? And I guess, what does that look like for you? Because at one point of your life, did you value other things as status symbol, and it evolved into being like I'm in Web3 now, like it looks different. But I'm curious like about just your journey, because you've had a lot of like monetary success. You've like achieved a lot of things that a lot of people haven't. I mean, I honestly consider you like one of the most interesting men in the world, because like we're not even gonna get into a fraction of the experiences you've had in your life. But it's like, I'm curious, how has that evolution of what does a status symbol look like?
I think one great example of using or NFTs as a digital flex might be Bored Apes or CryptoPunk, and which you are also a collector of Bored Apes, and once upon a time it also was on display on your Twitter profile. And so that's a way to flex on whether it's a Bored Ape, or in this case you've also held World of Women. So as a collector, you show what you value and the communities that you want to be a part of and are a part of and contributing to, and it represents that for the collectors. So whether it's high profile NFT like a World of Women or Bored Ape, or it's an NFT of your favorite celebrity, let's say Jim Jones or Neo, and now you're in possession of it, what it shows is that you were really early. For maybe it was something, a collectible, an album they might have dropped, or you attended an event. So that's another use case. I went to this concert and received an NFT, so therefore I'm able to flex that I went there, or I'm able to flex at my net worth because I hold this Bored Ape, and if I click on it, I can see, if someone clicks on that Bored Ape, they can follow the wallet and see all of the tokens that are within that person's digital wallet. And so that's the beauty of Ethereum, is transparent. It's like going to your Bank of America account and being able to, for someone to be able to see you have $20 million you acquired through your courses. And therefore, that's a flex of your net worth. In this case, it's a flex not just of net worth, but also what you value in terms of the purchases you make.
I love that. And you're right, the transparency. Like, I've been on Etherscan, because you can look up certain people's wallets on Etherscan and you'd be like, oh, damn, they got like $2 million in their wallet. But it is interesting because all of that is transparent, and that is the beauty of Web3. I'm curious, how, to someone who's new to this conversation, like, how do you describe Web3?
To describe Web3, we might rewind and say, what's Web 1, right? And then Web 2 and Web 3. So Web 1, let's call it somewhere between 1990 to about 2000. And that's when we can read what's happening on the internet. So there are folks who knew how to create a website. They did so, put content, and the rest of the world reads it. Web 2, let's call it the next decade, 2000 to 2010-ish, is where the most folks can now read and write, and that takes place with the advent of technology such as Amazon's or Facebook or Instagram. And now Web 3 is the beginning of around 2010-ish, which is the birth of Bitcoin, and then eventually the rest of cryptocurrency blockchains. So it's not just the ability for folks to read and write. And when we say write, meaning consumers can publish content without necessarily needing a PhD in computer science, because they can go on Instagram or Facebook and post content. And while we're still in Web 2, we're in this transition phase of also simultaneously in Web 3. It's not the future, it's now. So what's happening is we're seeing the ability to read, write, and own information, own our own data. It's no longer owned by just the corporations, the Instagrams and the Facebooks of the world. It's owned by the individual. So that's what's so profound about Web 3. And Web 3 is disrupting every industry. Every vertical will be touched and disrupted in this way. So we'll see individuals now read, write, own their content, and we'll see this take place through the use of technology such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, or even in this case, social tokens.
I love that. So what I'm hearing is, Web 1, one example could be like email was Web 1, or internet browser. So our ability to just, like, as you said, read. And then V2 or Web 2 was user-generated content. So that is the Instagrams where we can contribute content. However, we don't own the platform, and we're not necessarily getting the benefits from that platform. And then Web 3 is when we are generating the content, but we're also owning the content because there's a record of it on the blockchain and we're getting paid out for that. And it's interesting because we are seeing this trend of platforms like Facebook right now is rolling out a pilot program where they're paying creators like a lot, right? Instagram rolled out a program where they're paying creators to create reels. And it's fascinating because it's like Web 3 gave Web 2 or original OG Web 2 companies that nudge of like creators, like they're like, we're putting our time, our effort, our sweat and tears into this content, and like we want to be paid for it directly. And so it's interesting. It's almost like Web 3 and these platforms that were created that make it seamless caused these, Instagram, Facebook to be like, oh gosh, okay, we need a creator like monetization, play. Like, what can we do here? And it's interesting because you were early with this. It's like you actually created an NFT marketplace in 2019.
Right. So we started in 2019 iterating social tokens, and at the time we just called it tokenization platform. The concept of tokenization of social tokens had not been created then. And so we believed in this idea of tokenizing the world, but tokenizing people, passions, and businesses, right? And we believed that the future will be tokenized, and we didn't know then what we know now that it's called, and we call it social tokens, which is the ability to transfer wealth and create wealth. And it's profound because for the first time in human history, we can create money, right? And so when we think of, and it's even more profound when we consider folks of color creating and being on money, because when we look at the dollar bill or we look at currency, it has white folks who own slaves on money. And so during a movement like Black Lives Matter, we protested, and there were folks who burned down flags, ripped down statues. But what we didn't do was stop using the dollar bill, which has the faces of white folks who own slaves. And so if you want to look at it from a cultural standpoint, this is a revolution that's economic, political, and social, and it's a complete disruption of this paradigm, economic and political paradigm that we're seeing take place. Now, that's if we're looking at it through that lens. And even if we put that aside, we look at what's happening in terms of the economy, the creator economy, and what we now call the community economy. We're seeing, as you mentioned a moment ago, Web2 giants like Instagram and Facebook are now embracing the Web3 technology, essentially because their hand is being forced. And so when we think of Web3, we're seeing two trends happen. We're seeing Web2 giants embrace Web3. For example, Instagram is now allowing NFTs to be displayed on the profiles. We see Twitter, you can send cryptocurrency as a tip to different creators, and you can even put an NFT on your profile. So we're seeing this integration of Web3 tools in these Web2 social giants. Simultaneously, we're seeing corporations being born that are Web3 native. One example would be MintBlack, our social token platform.
Yeah, so tell me more about that, because I know that you were early. Like, you built a NFT marketplace first, you had a live streaming platform, now you have MintBlack, which is a social token platform. And it's amazing because you've had this beautiful evolution and you've always been early. And as I hear you say often, not where the puck is, but where the puck is going. And you as an individual, I think, are like a visionary. You're able to also articulate the vision and make it relatable and make it tangible. And you also execute. And so can you explain kind of like that evolution of where you started and then where you are now with MintBlack and how that does operate in service of the community economy?
When we look at the space, we see where the puck is are NFTs, metaverse, and DAOs. NFTs was the conversation of yesterday. Today, we're speaking about the metaverse. Tomorrow, it's about DAOs. And the day after, it's about social tokens. And we've been playing around with this concept, as you mentioned, since 2019. The platform was completed in 2020, and we decided to tokenize passion. So whether it's biohacking, there was a group that created a Planet Biohacking. At the time, this was on a platform called Zap Theory, which is an opportunity for brands to create tokenize, or a community to tokenize, and have certain use cases where they can engage their fans, their community, and send tips as social tokens, or they can use social tokens as a reward. So if you take certain social actions, you'll receive social tokens as a reward for doing so. We then incorporated some concepts of NFTs because we saw the use case of NFTs. We then decided, actually, social tokens will complement, not compete with NFTs, and we prefer to just focus on building one thing and doing it really well, and that's building the social token platform. So we took what we've learned from Zap Theory is simultaneously what we learned with the platform we built, Zap Life, the live streaming app.
Which is super dope.
Right, I appreciate that. And
super dope.
Actually, so a little bit about that.
Yeah.
The world shuts down beginning of COVID 2020, and we saw folks like DJ D-Nice going to Instagram to connect with their community and having live stream parties, and we saw the need for a live streaming app for virtual streaming. So we created a Zap Life app where folks can get together, they can communicate with one another, and they can enjoy a virtual party. You can be able to tip your DJ, communicate with one another. The dance floor changes every 30 seconds. There's a DJ, there's a host. We connected with folks like DJ Envy, who came on as one of our advisors and also participated in the app, hosting a party during Halloween of 2020. And we also held events for Jim Jones, and specifically not just his artist showcase, but also for his token holders. So folks who were in possession of Copper Coin, they would be able to have a virtual meet and greet with Jim Jones. And so that's where we married the two ideas, the social token platform Zap Theory with the live streaming app Zap Life. And now we're merging the two concepts into what we now call MintBlack.
I love that. So you've done this rebranding, took the learnings from Zap Theory, Zap Life, and now you have MintBlack. And so tell us like where you are now with your social token platform. And actually before we get to that, I'm curious about, because when I think of social tokens, for folks who are like new to this concept, I'm thinking of parallels in what we are familiar with. And one could be a reward system. So thinking about even having an Amex card or like United, getting those points, things like that you can redeem for other things. It's a similar experience. So I'm curious, like, how do you think about the parallels of social tokens and maybe other like relatable things that maybe happened in your life that sparked an interest for you where you're like, okay, this is dope. I can actually use it in the metaverse in this way.
So we see social tokens as a loyalty program 2.0. And that means whether it's United Miles, and I spent time as a travel hacking and finding ways to earn enough miles to use it to purchase a ticket, or whether it's Starbucks. In fact, Starbucks just announced today that in September they'll share their the ways in which they're embracing Web3 and tokenization. And there's a possibility they may announce that they're going to begin the process of exploring tokenization for its loyalty program, which would be a social token. We see the world, corporations eventually embracing social tokens. It will be the loyalty program 2.0, whether it's United taking its United Miles and tokenizing it, or Starbucks tokenizing their loyalty program, which makes it now allows liquidity to enter the mix, meaning folks who are in possession of these Starbucks miles or Starbucks points, they'll be able to sell it for dollars, cash out if they desire to do so. They can trade it for United Miles, or they can use the Starbucks points and hold on to it and share in the potential upside of the appreciation of this asset. And they have the ability to attend certain events that Starbucks might organize that are exclusive only to token holders. Maybe you have a certain number of Starbucks coins and you get access to an in-person event. Maybe you hold the Starbucks tokens, and if you stake it, you earn more. Perhaps you're able to use it to enter, you said, the metaverse, a certain experience that may only be available to folks who are in possession of either Starbucks coins in general or a certain amount. And so we're seeing a number of different companies experiment in various ways with social tokens, and we'll see loyalty programs be disrupted. Certainly, that's the easiest use case to think of when we see social tokens. But it's not just Starbucks and United, it's also people. We're seeing, because people are businesses, so we now have an opportunity for people to create a loyalty program, create their social token. So in the case of Jim Jones creating CopperCoin, we're able to use CopperCoin as a reward system to give away and say to his community for perhaps participating in, let's say there's a contest where for his most recent song, We Set the Trends, there's a dance contest, the winner might
We
receive...
set the trends! I mean, in!
That?
Dun, 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 dun. Yes.
Which was,
I learned the words!
which was the number 2 song in the nation, so certainly he set the trend with that. And the folks who might win a dance contest will come into possession of, say, CopperCoin, and whether they can win it, they can earn it, or they can purchase it. And folks have done all of that. So it's a loyalty program for people.
And then something really cool that you mentioned in another conversation we had is when people held a certain amount of CopperCoin, they could earn the opportunity, I think, for Jim to give them feedback on their track, or there were really cool benefits that just in case any other creators are watching, they can start to ideate on what are some benefits that they can have when introducing their own currency, their own social token to their community.
Right. So that's where we incorporated the Zap Life app, where we did an artist showcase where if you hold CopperCoin, you can enter the artist showcase as recording artist and play your music, get feedback from Jim Jones, who was present, listening in real time, which is profound, because when else are you able to get this level of access to someone like Jim Jones, a hip hop legend, and have him listen to your song and then have the ability to win a spot on his mixtape, which is an exciting opportunity. And one way to do that is, you come into possession of his social token.
I just love how this can be applied to not only artists who are household names like Jim Jones, they're also, I think, people in like my industry in digital products. I mean, it's so interesting because it's like we have an existing customer base and they have bought into a program like Course from Scratch. They've learned the framework, and introducing a currency to my community means that they can unlock things like a VIP day or a special ticket to my next like Since 3000 Zip and Paint, like the launch party. So I just love like all the creative use cases, and it's like a throwback to the Kickstarter days. So when I was like living with my mom and like figuring my life out, I started researching Kickstarter because we did a Kickstarter campaign for a startup I was a part of. And I remember just seeing all the different benefits that you could give people when they donated to your campaign. So this is like a throwback where you're like, okay, like for this level of investing and also owning this currency that we've created for our community, you get access to this. But it takes it to the next level, because it's like if you maintain ownership of this, then it's going to grow in value as we grow the community and as we keep throwing more benefits in. So it's really like it's just like a new mask on investing.
Right. So I think it's Kickstarter 2.0. Right. So just as much
Or
as
3.0?
Or 3.0. Listen,
Like
we're Web3. And what we're seeing, it's really a magic bean. And I say that because it's including Loyalty Program 2.0, it's Crowdfunding 2.0, it's Kickstarter 2.0. Here's the difference, right? Whereas Kickstarter, the individual who believes in a project, they hand over dollars to show that they believe in that concept. And what they might receive, as you mentioned, they give X dollars, they receive a book. Y dollars, they receive a ticket to an event. Yet, they don't have the potential of sharing in the upside of that project. Now, when they receive, let's call it this magic bean for investing, or in this case, contributing dollars, there's the potential of this social token increasing in value over time. And they can still get all of those benefits that you were able to do with Kickstarter. You invest X, you receive a gift. Y, you receive something bigger. Z, you receive something larger. Now you hold on to that for not only access on an ongoing basis, but you can use it as a medium of exchange to purchase, let's say, the product, whether in this case for a course from scratch. They can use it to purchase a course. Maybe it's one of your courses, or maybe it's one of the courses of the creators the members of your CFS. And so it will disrupt every industry. And I think a CFS coin or a Danielle coin would just be incredible use case for the world of possibilities in terms of being able to use it as a reward, but then also folks can use that to purchase additional courses, or they can hold on to it, and as the community continues to grow, they may be able to sell it later on for more money than it was worth today.
I love that. And this is why you call it the community economy. Like it's like taking it a step further from the creator economy to the community economy.
Right.
Because all of us are equal parts contributing and also benefiting. And it's like the more we realize that, the more it grows in value. That's huge.
Right. So I think creator economy is top down, community economy is bottom up. What do we mean? So creators like yourself, in Web2, we did a great job of saying we need to do more for creators. So whether it's Instagram, Facebook, and now OnlyFans did a great job of allowing creators to monetize. And while a lot of effort has been put into creators benefiting from these platforms, what we're not talking about is the community. Right, so that's where we said our focus is more so in the community economy than it is the creator economy, because without the community, there is no creator. The creator shouldn't just benefit and the community just hands over money and maybe they get some level of access, such as exclusive content, pictures, videos, or maybe they get to show their support. But the community should also be able to benefit in the potential upside in the growth, because it now incentivizes the community to really share their passion for someone like a Danielle Leslie, right? If someone is in possession of a Danielle Leslie coin, that individual is a super fan, right? And so we talk about this idea of 1,000 real fans, right? True fans. In this case, with social tokens, we're going to see, and we came up with this concept called 1,000 true token holders. And by that, meaning community, 1,000 community members coming into possession of a Danielle Leslie coin, which allows them to get certain access, perhaps early access to an event, an experience, an in-person, virtual event, be able to use that as a medium of exchange. And most importantly, as your brand continues to grow and it's massive already, they get to share in the upside of that, which isn't possible unless you were to create a corporation and decided to do a crowdfunding platform where you sold equity. And so now with social tokens, we're able to allow folks to contribute to the growth of your brand and share in the potential upside. And so we're going to see brands grow at an exponential pace, even more so than it would in the Web2 world.
Wow. And so if someone is watching this and they have an existing community and they're wondering, okay, I want to create my own currency, I want to have my own social token, where do they go and how does that process work?
MintBlack.
It is a layup, by the way.
Appreciate it.
Because y'all are making it super easy for us creators to actually make this happen.
Absolutely. And so at MintBlack, MintBlack.io is the platform. And in doing so, we're working initially with creators who have an existing community and are looking not just to monetize that community, because that's very transactional, but rather to give value to the community through this social tokens. And in return, everyone wins. It's a win-win scenario where the community gets to benefit and share as well as the creator. And so to your point in terms of creators being able to launch their social token, we experimented and did the hard work with someone like Jim Jones, and we saw the amount of heavy lifting that was required, the white glove service we had to provide to get the traction we did over the year or so that we worked with Jim. And we iterated on the concept and said, let's make it easier. Let's solve for efficiency and scalability. How do we allow a creator like a Danielle Leslie and other creators of folks that are within your circle to be able to tokenize, create a social token for their community and with their community without requiring a PhD in blockchain, without needing to understand cryptocurrency and the depths of it, Uniswap and MetaMask and all of these perceived as complicated aspects of cryptocurrency that, unless you really go deep down the rabbit hole, may seem foreign. And not just the creator, but also the community. How do we make it easy for your community to be able to come into possession of your token, use it, and understand A, why they should come into possession of it, and B, what they can do with it? That came as a result of us experimenting with someone like Jim Jones, and he's such a pioneer. Early to the party, said, this is the future, let's do it now. And so we were able to play around with the concept called Coin and attracted over 500 Coin token holders, experimented with this idea that we're now transmuting into a social token on MintBlack.
Hey, this is Danielle Leslie, and I have a question for you. If you are a creative entrepreneur and your business is unique, why are you working with a generic accountant? One of the best decisions I made was who I would partner with on my taxes and my accounting. So if you're a creative entrepreneur, you are growing your business, you're scaling your business, I want to introduce you to Revel. Revel is a firm that can help you whether you're looking to prepare your taxes or you're looking for that year-round support. They will tell you what's happening in your business and why. So if you're tired of being ignored, talked down to, or feeling like you are chasing around your accountant and needing to drive the relationship yourself, it's time for a change. Head over to revelcpa.com, revelcpa.com. Head on over, fill out their interest form, and make sure you look into working with them. Again, that is revelcpa.com, revelcpa.com. We all deserve the right firm to partner with. It's been proven that procrastination can be one of our biggest enemies to success. Now, contrary to belief, procrastination is not based on a lack of time management or organizational skills. Procrastination is directly linked to our emotions. Now, the reason I know this is because of Patty Johnston. Patty Johnston is incredible. She's a Course from Scratch member, but even more importantly, she's built multiple multi-million-dollar businesses once she learned how to overcome procrastination. So she's created a program where she shares her system on how to overcome procrastination, and it's based on emotional intelligence, neuroscience, and accountability. She's gonna show you step-by-step how to overcome negative feelings so you can start taking action and start seeing a difference from day one. So text this number right now to schedule an appointment with Patty and her team to see if this is right for you and what steps for you to take to overcome your procrastination. 813-789-1097. And again, the number to text right now is 813-789-1097. Let's all overcome procrastination together. Now let's get back to the episode. What I got to see in action from you, you are truly like a serial entrepreneur and you've lived many lives, which is so impressive. So all the way from being a teacher, which is so incredible. And I want to hear like the things you've learned from your time being a teacher, to even doing like high ticket sales for Jared Robbins, right? For Tony Robbins' son, high ticket sales there, and like digital marketing, info products, to having your own company, to even our NFT project. So I remember we met at NFT NYC. I told you I wanted to launch an NFT project. And then it was just a few months later when you floated an opportunity to me and you said, hey, we have this opportunity to turn Julianne Moore's red carpet couture gowns into NFTs. Are you interested? I know you're working on Fidgetal approach where you're taking physical fashions and digital fashions, merging them. Would you be interested in this? And I was like, sure. And you're like, okay, bet. And it was a brand new frontier for me. And the fact that in 2 weeks we had like multiple designs, like multiple NFT designs of, you know, someone we had never worked with before, a medium we hadn't worked with before. It spoke a lot to who you are, like as a leader, as a connector. That campaign in particular brought together so many different partners. There was Mark Bozek over at Live Rocket Studios. There was the different NFT platforms. So we had Mogul, which specializes in entertainment NFTs. We had Drawstring, who also had NFTs. We had Nicole Buffett, the granddaughter of Warren Buffett, who released her NFTs, like her interpretation of the gowns. I know I'm forgetting a couple more partners. Who else am I forgetting?
So with the drop the Since 3000, well, most importantly, you.
Oh, yes.
you were the highlight. You reimagined what the gowns worn by Julianne Moore would have looked like. And that's gowns that were couture gowns by Givenchy and Balenciaga that she wore on the red carpet. You did an incredible job, and your team, the designer Isaac, really crushed it. And of course, Julianne Moore helping to promote and run a commercial during the Oscars, which actually was the world's first commercial during a nationally televised commercial during the Oscars, and a program of that scale. And there was an opportunity for folks to scan the QR code in the commercial and go to the website Gowns for Good, where they can either purchase a NFT with the picture or the image of Nicole Buffett's abstract interpretation of the gowns, or they can bid on the Mogul Production website and bid for the gowns. And 3 of the winners include 2 of which are super high profile brands. One is French Montana, hip hop artist.
So dope. And we got to take a photo, or I got to take a photo of you too, but I'm sure that's every day for you. That was new for me. I was like, oh, hi, French Montana. But yeah, we got to go to his like listening party at NFT NYC this year and like take a photo. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he like has one of our pieces. That's amazing.
Right, that was incredible. That was
Huge.
A great surprise. And shout out to Radio Hookah, USM Labs, working with French Montana. And as a result, they decided to bid on the dress, and French came into possession of one of the gowns. The other is the largest fashion museum in all of South America, Museo de la Moda. And so that was also exciting, the fact that this NFT is being displayed in the largest fashion museum in all of South America, specifically Chile.
Wow, that's incredible. So to highlight there, I mean, you're such a connector, and you created the vision of Gowns for Good, and you were able to see all the different players who could make it happen, corral all of us, and help. Like, you have an amazing team. Shout out to Cassie, Edwin, everybody at MintBlack. But you're able to execute on this amazing level. And so on a more personal level, I'm really curious, like, where your work ethic came from, your drive, because there are very few people I've met who have the level of work ethic drive that you have. Where did that come from?
Sure. So most importantly, my parents. And my father has been an entrepreneur, and growing up and working with him on different ventures and concepts that, such as, during a Puerto Rican Day parade, we said, well, let's sell water. And so driving down Puerto Rican Day parade, selling water, and realizing that I was able to turn $40 into maybe $300. And I was doing this at the age of 10, 11, 12. And so learning early on how to do mental math, how to make money, how to start a business, how to not be embarrassed at the idea of selling water in a parade while my friends were watching it. So these concepts and this drive that it's a Saturday, it's 12 p.m. and we're working has carried through my entire life. Eventually, later on, right after graduation, joining Teach for America, becoming a teacher, and working at a top charter school, North Star Academy, and also getting top tier training and really just learning firsthand from some of the best educators in the world how to perform at the highest level, and then having the opportunity to work with children, in this case 12, 13-year-old kids who were reading and writing at a college level. And I think my inspiration came not only just from my parents, but carried through with all the individuals with whom I came in contact, including my fellow colleagues at North Star Academy, the students with whom I taught, or rather learned from, at North Star, and along the way working with folks like Cassie, my co-founder, Edwin, who's also my brother, and all the co-founder, and working and surrounding myself around high-performing individuals keeps my fire burning, keeps me going, because we see the vision. We know where we're headed, we know where the space is headed, and the opportunity of social tokens and how it will disrupt every industry, and how we're so early that now's not the time to stop. Now's the time to continue to iterate, especially during a bear market. Let's continue to build, and let's continue to create the next frontier of cryptocurrency that is social tokens.
I love that. So what I love is we often, as adults, end up, if we're open to it, returning back to or continuing what brought us joy as a child. And you are like a master at sales and like high ticket sales, thinking about buyer psychology, language, even like you said, the mental math. And there was a story you shared with me about like at the flea market and when you were like at your table and negotiating. And I loved that because I could see you doing that, and then I extracted it and I was like, oh my God, that's like what you do now. But obviously it's at 6-figure, like 7-figure deals that you're doing. But I would love for you to share like that story.
Sure. So I love the idea of sales, and I really think of it just as enrollment. And if you truly believe in the product or the service you're selling, it's in benefit of the individual or the company that's purchasing that product or service. And so early on, as you mentioned, at a flea market, well, again, around 10, 11, 12, with my parents, and we would buy products that we would then resell for more money at the flea market. And it was a Sunday afternoon, and this is what I was doing. Most of my friends were hanging out, and I was at the flea market, made $20 for helping out, and also had a table where I was able to sell my toys. Now, I don't know if this was a great idea because it incentivized me. It incentivized me to want to buy more toys at Toys R Us and sell them right away. So looking back at it, I was probably taking a net loss, but for me, it was a 100% gain because I didn't buy the toys at Toys R Us.
Right, that's
but in terms of
money.
they bought the toys, let's say for $20. I used it for a month or two, sold it for $5 or $10, and I thought I was making more money. In which I learned the value of being able to sell at a young age and negotiate, not counting the fact that it was a net loss. Put that aside, it was fun, it was interesting, and it was a great learning experience that then carried over into everything else I've done, whether it's in the classroom and having to sell 12-year-old students on why they should A, learn history, and B, do their homework, right? And so we're always selling. We're first selling ourselves. We need to look in the mirror and decide we're going to be the best version of self. We're going to wake up with high energy, be excited about life. So in sales, the first thing you need to do is sell yourself on having high energy, and then secondly, sell yourself on the product or the service that you're selling and why it's of value to the folks who are potentially going to buy it. And so that's been a fun journey. And even with cryptocurrencies, I've had the opportunity of sharing with folks I've come into contact with about the value of, say, Bitcoin or Ethereum and why they should get in early. So we're selling this vision of Web3 and how it's going to transform and disrupt every sector. So we're always selling a concept, a vision. And now I'm selling the idea of MintBlack and how social tokens will be the next frontier of cryptocurrency. We saw NFTs, metaverse, DAOs. Social tokens is the next big thing. And so we're selling first ourselves, and then secondly, others, and not selling in the way where it's perceived as it has a negative connotation, but we're enrolling folks in this massive vision that we have for the world to bring along a community that will help us create and build simultaneously.
All right. So I love like the way you think, and I know that one thing we have in common is we both did Landmark.
Right.
What year did you do it in?
I think 2019.
Okay.
August
Oh my gosh.
20.
Yeah. So I did it in 2019, and we both did it with Larry.
Oh wow, yeah. Right.
Yeah. And we both did the advanced program.
I did it immediately
Almost
after.
back to back.
Right.
Yep. I did it like 3 weeks later.
And then SELP and then the coaching and just went through the entire system.
Okay, so I stopped at SELP, but you kept going. Okay. So, but one thing I took from that is, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Mm-hmm. And I've definitely seen that with you. And I remember we were talking about like dating apps and Hinge in particular. And I was like, oh my gosh, like we got into the strategy. And I think it's because we both have a background in, marketing, sales. We understand there's a sales funnel and like, this is what you do. And so I was able to like intellectualize your approach to like a dating app. So I would love for you to share, because a lot of people are like but I just found it so fascinating.
Oh,
when it, I know, putting you on the spot.
I'm not sure if it's the best approach. Most folks should probably not do it. This is how you should not go about dating. I was experimenting with this idea of outsourcing and simplifying and streamlining the dating process. And so I thought of it in some ways as sales or marketing. And so you have a profile where essentially you're marketing yourself. Here's what I've done, here's what I've been up to. Probably mention Landmark to attract those folks who are all about self-growth. And then here's where you streamline this pipeline of outbound and inbound. And so being able to have a message that goes outbound to the folks you're interested in, and then the people who respond, finding a way to synthesize the match and then having a conversation, but how do you do that at scale? And so I've enrolled virtual assistants who would help send out messages for me based on what I would say. So I would craft the message. Here's message number 1, message number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And after the person responds to message number 1, second message would go out. And depending whether it's 2A, 2B, depending on whether it's yes or no, and same third, fourth, fifth, all the way to the point where it's let's exchange information, let's hop on a call, let's talk, see if the magic is still there once we get on the phone. And then from there, I would be able to see who was a good fit and who I perhaps wanted to go on a date with in real life. Now, the reason why this was interesting is because it was a way to essentially communicate with thousands of people and eventually go on a date with, say, 10 or 20, but be able to sift without necessarily me having to put all of the effort and energy. Because my thinking was, well, if I can streamline it and outsource this, perhaps I can meet the right person faster. And what I learned is that this is how you should not date, because love is not supposed to be quantified and it shouldn't have a process. It's not logical. It's a gut feeling. And so it's emotional, and the individual should be involved in the process from the beginning. It was fun, interesting. It was an experiment, but I wouldn't recommend it to anyone as an approach if what they're really looking for is a soulmate.
So I love it. So you experimented with this process, which was largely based on what you knew to be true in business.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, maybe this is not quite how we look for love. So I'm curious, like, what did you learn from that? Like, what do you look for in a partner, and how do you look for that person? How have you, looked for that person?
Right. So what I learned is, as I mentioned a moment ago, it's not something that can be quantified with X's and O's or plus or minuses, but rather it's a feeling. And while there are perhaps areas that we can check off that I want in a partner. So someone who is interesting, someone who's curious about the world, someone who asks interesting questions, someone who is excited to learn more about themselves, the world, me as an individual. They are interested in how I've come to be the person I am today, and we have a magical connection. And so I think that's more of a feeling than it is a thought, right? When I think of that person, I think of how do I feel after I had a conversation with that individual. Am I smiling? Am I laughing? Do I laugh 90% of the time? Am I going through life with that individual and it feels like a dance? And when we stumble, we just make it part of the dance, right? And are we looking at those opportunities as learning opportunities? We don't see it as a failure. We see it as an opportunity to just get better, certainly individually and collectively. And it's a journey. It's not a destination. And so everything I've applied in business, I've also applied to my personal life. I'm looking to become a better version of self. And so therefore, I'm looking for a partner who is interested in becoming a better version of herself. And so therefore, we are constantly improving who we are, and therefore entity that is that we created is constantly getting better.
I love that. Cool. Thank you for sharing. What is a truth that maybe you haven't shared with anyone yet? Maybe even not yourself.
A moment ago, I spoke about what I'm looking for in a partner, and I'm usually very closed off. But the truth is, I do have a partner who I love, adore, enjoy spending time with, enjoy dancing through life with. And I see that the person I'm becoming today is a result of the person I'm dating. Someone who pushes me to think about life differently, pushes me to see the world anew and relate to me as the person that I'm becoming, realizing that I'm not perfect, I'm imperfect, and I'm stumbling along life trying to figure out self, and she is also in that journey of looking to figure out self. And so collectively, we're constantly growing. And so I'm usually very private with my life, and so the truth is that I'm more than content, I'm elated. And I'm excited to be able to share space and time with this special person.
Oh, wow, you're like making me cry. I'm like getting emotional. Wow.
So that's the truth I don't usually share.
Wow, that was
that's
awesome.
More so something I would write in a journal and just keep tucked away.
Aww. Thank you for sharing your truth. We're going to transport ourselves to the future. So we are like 10 years into the future, 10 or 20. And I would love for you to share with us, who is Noel? Where is he in the world? When he wakes up in the morning, what does he see? What is he doing? What is his day-to-day like in like 20 years?
Perhaps I'm waking up in the metaverse and I see my world in parallel with the world I'm living in real life unfold, and I'm able to bounce back and forth between a virtual world and an in-person life. And so I see that as maybe not even 20 years, perhaps 4 or 5 years out. 20 years, I see myself perhaps definitely within Web3, perhaps still within the social token space, and continuing to iterate on the concept of maybe a Nike coin, a Walmart coin. What would that look like for corporations and also people? And so I see social tokens being used in every fabric of our society, and we'll use tokenization in every aspect of our world. And so I see that certainly in 20 years, but also perhaps in the next 5 years, and all taking place within the metaverse and in real life. And so while it is something I'm working on in terms of a vocation, it's also something I believe that's part of my life and will continue to be true 20 years plus out. In addition to what I envision my life might look like from a professional and even personal standpoint, that is how it overlaps with Web3 when it comes to, I guess, a more personal world in terms of family and children and what that might look like. Well, 20 years from now, I guess let's call it 54, man. Unless I find a way to age backwards.
Reverse your aging? Yeah.
So,
but you could do that.
and I believe I'll be alive until 300 years old. So I have a long way to go. That's it. In 20 years from now, I imagine by then my children might be somewhere around 18, 19, perhaps 20 years old. Ideally, have a home where my parents will live there. My parent-in-laws will also live with us. I envision continuing to have a large family as I do now, and seeing everyone and interacting, vacationing, having a vacation home where we can all go, most likely Puerto Rico, which is one of my favorite places in the world, and being able to go regularly with my family and carving out time separate from just always being on the go when it comes to business, and having more of a work-life harmonious way of being. And so certainly that would be the case in 20 years. Hopefully in the next 20 weeks we'll get there, because it's a way of being that's required to be able to not only enjoy everything that I shared in 20 years, but in the next 300 years.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on. This was an honor, truly, like to be one of the first person in this space. I even know people who you have introduced into this space, who you've educated, who I happen to know from a previous life. So your legacy really like shines and like resounds through and through. And yeah, and I just want to thank you for like helping like welcome me into a brand new frontier, helping like educate me, and overall, I think as a woman, giving me the confidence to say like, it's okay. And like, you are worthy and you can do this thing, and I'll be here to support, and I'll link you to resources that can help propel you. So I just want to thank you for being on and sharing space with me.
Cool. Thank you. Well, thank you for doing the great work you've done. We came into contact, as you mentioned, NFT NYC, and we've been able to dance within the crypto space and build something great that is the Since 3000 PFP project that we spoke about a moment ago. That was a fun journey. And then it's just a pleasure to be able to have this conversation with you on this podcast and just see another dimension of your magic being shared and being able to be part of that. So thank you for having me on, and excited to continue to see you grow and prosper.
Awesome. Thanks. Listen, sometimes life be lifing, and we do not know what's coming down that road next. Well, that's what happened to me in 2016 when I was unexpectedly laid off from my job. And I was 6 figures in student loan debt. I had no savings, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. Now, luckily, I had this little voice inside of me at that time that I couldn't ignore, and it was telling me to take the leap. It was saying, use this as your opportunity to build your business. Use this as your opportunity to create your dream life. And so I believe that life happens for us, not to us. And that nudge in my spirit, I should listen to it. Luckily, I did. Fast forward to today, I have a business that's made over $20 million, and I've helped over 10,000 people create their online businesses and their dream lives. So do you want to learn how to turn your story into an online product and launch in 30 days? Head on over to coursefromscratch.com/since3000. I want you to join us on this journey so you can listen to that little voice inside of you too. So go now, do yourself a favor, coursefromscratch.com/since3000.